Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Top Producer Show. Right now, we're going over the book, The Tripping Point in Leadership. So, our mission with this show is to create financially independent, sorry, our mission is to create financially servant leaders, and our vision is to create financially independent achievers, and our purpose is to help people grow. So, we go over a book or a seminar each day to give you guys a little lesson on leadership, how to work with people, and how to really become that top producer in whatever field that you're in. So this is the book that we're going to be going over. And Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so The Tripping Point in Leadership, David Bird actually is one of my mentors, somebody I worked with. David Bird was president of LMI, Leadership Management Institute, an international organization that trained companies for over 40 years of experience, helping develop and use more of their potential with more than 28 years of experience working with top businesses and executives. This was his first book. Oh, she's eating over there. I was wondering what, like, ding, 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 ding. So the foreword is actually, a dedication is by Paul J. Meyer. Paul J. Meyer was a recorded billionaire, happens to be fond of direct sales also. This book is not cotton candy, pat you on the fanny approach to leadership. Before you finish the first chapter, it will probably hit you in the gut. The intention of this book is to wake you up out of your apathy, not just for inspirational moment, but for setting of new choices, new direction, and new action for leaders in your company. For those who don't want to look in the mirror and find out what's there, they should probably put this book down now. But for you, when you finish and apply the content of this book in your life, you will be an effective leader without any fluff. This very well may be the first leadership book that you won't be able to put down and finish. It was true. It was one of the first books I read straight through. The ebb and flow of basically seemingly random, and there's many circumstances over which there's none of us have any control, but the ups and downs, losses and gains, and success and failures of life are usually directed by certain natural laws. Just like gravity, these consistent principles and truths are at the disposal of humankind for its benefit and deterrent. From the very core of our existence, we are created with certain personal powers, benefit those who use them or impede those who ignore them. This book was written from the perspective of my own life's journey. I have learned from personal and professional experiences that there are certain personal powers eventually define the qualities of effective leadership, and effective leaders are needed in every area of life, just like John Maxwell talks about. Much of what's been written on the subject of personal powers, but the purpose of this book is to answer these questions. Why are these personal powers important to me? If we understand the basic reason for our creativity and design, then those personal powers become much more than a seminar topic. If we understand the human flaw for which our personal powers were designed to, produce, those powers become a pathway to effective, dynamic lifestyle. Effective leadership must be developed. It cannot come by chance, position, title, or age, which was really good to know, right? He goes on to say, I've invested much of my life over the 28 years working with top business executives in every organization. Every day I hear people's problems that basically presumed to be the cause of ineffectiveness. Most clients are shocked when they first realize that their problems are really symptoms of a natural human instinct. Effective leadership is uniquely qualified, and I find that it never just happens. It is a skill that must be developed, and development process does not and cannot happen naturally by life. In the absence of this critical development process, we young aspiring leaders missing significant opportunities to learn and model effective leadership. There are so many current leaders who have already learned from less than effective models, and there are those who've been given decision-making authority who have no idea what effective leadership actually is. Most organizations' dysfunctional stems from one of the following scenarios. The Tripping Point in Leadership is written as a common sense guide to enhance leadership quality. It is not intended to be exhaustive academic discourse, meaning it's not just a bunch of bullshit words that are, long stories and long paragraphs of stuff to kind of trick you into thinking that they're going somewhere. They're actually teaching something, which is good. Sincerely, I hope that these words will create awareness among leaders, and that the awareness will result in effective changes in organizational schools and families. Effective changes begins with awareness, and awareness always leads to choice. After reading this book, you'll ask the question, how will I choose? So chapter 1, it says apathy can trip you up. The first step to overcoming it is recognizing it. So apathy, a human natural instinct. He goes, I just finished my instructions in front of more than 70 top executives. By the way, David Bird basically taught to people who made, what do you say, $250,000 or $500,000 or more in the corporate world. So he flew around the world, was one of the top 5 personal coaches in the world during his height at LMI as president of the company for 11 years. During his time as president of the company, he brought in more than $750 million in coaching money. So this guy is the top peak of what you can become as a coach, at least up until the point, he walked away. He still does it part-time, but he retired from LMI. I told them that the organizational problems they had just identified on their introductory worksheets were merely symptoms of all the same universal problem, apathy. The individual incomes of this group range from 250 to 500. So that's where I got that number. And I had just told them that they were apathetic. So imagine this, you're sitting in a room of people who make, this is the top 1% of the country. And you're saying, hey, you guys basically have reached a point where you don't want to do anything anymore. Or at least that's what they heard. It says, I quickly asked them to withhold their judgment for a moment and give them a chance to explain, collectively deciding that a high-priced development expert has just basically come in to insult them. As a hush fell over the room, I began verbally reviewing a general list of the problems and provided indecisiveness, lack of drive, lack of creativity, lack of focus, stagnation, burnout, imbalance, and the list went on. This was their list, not mine. I paused for a second and just looked at them and asked each executive to write down the following development definition for apathy. And this is his definition, a definition of apathy: a natural human instinct common to us all that consistently encourages us to seek a comfort zone which nothing ever changes. That is a basic human instinct of life. Pens began to move across legal pads. After a few moments, I asked the group the question, how many of you know someone in your current organization who is impended by this description of apathy? The entire group raised their hands in unison. Then I asked this question. How many of you have at some point suffered from this same description? Again, all hands were raised, a pin could drop. Finally, one person started laughing and being, courageously raised the hand. Her actions stimulated the colleagues to all raise their hands. Facing the facts, the word apathy is unfriendly and threatening word to most people. And that's possibly the reason why I never hear executives use a word described problems in their organization. Instead, what you hear is the symptoms. You hear burnout, stagnation, indecisiveness, lack of creativity, lack of motivation, lack of productivity, so on and so forth. These symptoms may sound more professional than academic, clinical, or forgiving, but symptoms, if worked on exclusively, lead an organization on a wild goose chase, fixing symptoms but never really solving the problems. You're chasing the feeling, but not what's wrong, which happens today a lot. Comfortable with the truth. Apathy is very useful and effective word now after years of experience. In fact, I've learned that until a person gains awareness of how the forces of apathy work to basically impede effectiveness, behavioral change and improvement are out of the question. So, awareness begins with an understanding of apathy as natural human instinct common to us all. Everybody has this. You can't get away from it. Usually when someone's called apathetic, he or she is being accused of indifference. But the working definition that I'm using for apathy has little to do with indifference. It has everything to do with describing basically the relationship between the basic motivation of security and the natural human instinct described as apathy. Take a closer look at the working definition, a natural human instinct common to us all that consistently encourages us to seek a comfort zone which nothing ever changes. Now ask yourself the question, what is one of mankind's basic motivational drives. And then he goes into basically Maslow's law. In Maslow's law, famous book, A Theory of Human Motivation, most all human behavior can be traced back to basic motivation of self-preservation and security. So it starts out with basics. The basics, if you look at Maslow's law, the bottom of the pyramid, basics are food, water, shelter, sex. Those are the basic human drives. Once you get past those drives, if you can solve those issues, the next one is safety and security. That's why the fastest growing things in America are fences, guns, dogs, security cameras. That's why security cameras took off like crazy. There's so many different versions of them. Alarm systems, identity theft systems. It's protect, 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 protect. It is natural for all of us to seek a comfort zone. This process of seeking security and building unproductive comfort zones, if left unchecked, leads us to behaviors that are usually described by the causes of people problems of ineffectiveness. In order to demonstrate how the forces of apathy and natural human instinct act as the root cause of all individual and organizational dysfunction, I've included the following real case studies, which typical example of hundreds of people. Names have been changed, so they do not relate to the actual client's case. So he goes into the first one. He's like, John. John is a senior vice president, large organization. He's 52 years old. He's been with the same company for over 27 years. And talking to John, I asked the question, John, do your employees have a consistent criticism of you and your leadership? He's like, yeah. He quickly replied, indecision. I asked him if he believed those critiques are accurate. He said, I don't think so because the company is in transition right now. I have to make sure the decisions are right. It's better not to make a decision at all than make the wrong one. After all, I'll be retiring in the next few years. I interviewed several of John's employees and heard most often, John is a good man, but he keeps us waiting forever on an answer to our basic questions. His indecision is causing severe delays in productivity. The forces of apathy are the cause of John's problems. Indecision is the symptom. John has constructive and comfort zone for himself to avoid the fear of making a bad decision. Because the idea is you don't want to make a bad decision at the very end of your career and then leave the company, in a shit storm and then you walk away. That's what he's trying to avoid. The problem is that is not true. It hasn't happened yet, but he's going to make it happen. Why? Because that's what unfortunately people do. As a result, this unconscious goal is never to make a mistake at all. John's comfort zone is in a place which nothing can ever change, and mistakes can never happen. John's leadership behavior is unproductive and uncomfortable. Unfortunate, too. I am a rising star. So Anne is a young, bright executive, rising star. She's on the fast track to the top, but you'll hit the wall. As she described it, I haven't had a new idea in months, she explained. I'm so exhausted most of the time I can't even think. My life is nothing but work, and I see no end to it. In an interview with Anne's boss, he said, Anne has the greatest potential I've ever seen, but her lack of focus on priorities is constantly getting her into trouble. She's got to turn it around because it's affecting her performance. Anne's boss sees the symptom, the lack of focus, while her unproductive behavior is actually a result of unrecognizable forces of apathy. As usual, as it may seem, Anne finds security in staying busy and being overworked. Maintaining the pace of a superhero allows her never to face her insecurities about her complacency. Her overachieving behavior represents a comfort zone in which she can never be threatened of an evaluation of results. Hey, look, I'm doing more than anybody else, so you can't fire me, although I'm really not getting anywhere. Al, the CEO of a company, 50 employees, had been in leadership positions at 3 different companies over the last 10 years. He's 55 years old. In an initial interview, Al, I asked, what he's wanting to accomplish over the next 2 to 5 years. He said, what I really want to do is take this company to the next level. I quickly asked him to describe the next level. He said, I want to double revenues to $10 million. He then beamed with confidence. My next question caused some of discomfort. What is the obstacles that stand in the way if you accomplish this goal? He responded, my people. I asked him to explain. He goes, I can't get my people to buy into my leadership team. So I find it a lot easier just to do it myself. He went on to say, they're good people, but I just can't trust them to get the job done right. if I had some people who would basically listen to me and do things the way that I wanted them to do them, I could achieve this goal. Symptoms are not the problem. Apathy usually is. In talking to Al's leadership team, the general consensus is that Al admires the team admires Al's work ethic. They just want to help, but they feel like he does not trust them to get anything accomplished. As a result, it's much easier for him to basically take the support or helper role because Al is going to basically do the job himself anyway. Al is psychologically secure in his comfort zone. He basically interprets his lack of belief in his people as confident self-resilience. The problem is that the company will never be able to grow beyond the individual capacity of Al. He is completely unaware of the damage of his behaviors causing the force of apathy as natural human instinct are causing Al to seek a comfort zone in which he never trusts his own people. He goes on to talk about Jim. Jim, a newly promoted VP, which has been, employed for over 15 years, literally rose from the ranks of his current position about 45 years old. Jim is known for his work ethic and attention to detail. He's a first-class project person. Completing tasks is his hallmark. In interviewing him, he told me that his greatest frustration is the people problems that fall under my new responsibilities get in the way of my own work. I miss the opportunity to close my door and just complete projects. In talking to Jim's boss, I found that Jim is having a difficulty assuming his new leadership role. His level of frustration is very noticeable at times. He doesn't know how to deal with people. Completed tasks and projects represent a psychological comfort zone for Jim. His frustrations are not caused by missed opportunities to close the door and complete projects, but his changes that his new job requires is forcing him out of his comfort zone into a different personality zone. Because if you're dealing with multiple people who do things different ways, he was probably a C-type or D-type or even S-type personality that has a certain way they want to do things. They want to just close the door. They don't want interruptions. They don't want anything. And what they're doing is basically forcing their people away. What is the common denominator? The common denominator in every organization worldwide is every day people show up to work and bring themselves with them, their unique set of values, beliefs, behaviors, and screw-ups. Effective leadership development is appropriate for every level of an organization, from the CEO down to the stockroom clerk. Organizations without proactive leadership development programs at every level of their organization are prime targets for the forces of apathy, and basically you're going to have a system fall apart. If you were to take any one of those real examples and multiply it by each member of an organization, stagnation and decline would basically it would be the only possible result. Really taking it to the next level. For the next few years, I was working with a significant international company in the food services industry. The company had been in operation since the 70s and had grown revenues to over $200 million. However, when I looked at the company's past, I found that the company had leveled off 3 years prior and was in the beginning stages of decline. So that's what usually happens. It rises to a certain point, and then people are like, okay, we're good. We're bigger than everybody else. And then it's like, how do I protect this rather than how to keep growing? Apple. I immediately begin to talk with the leaders about forces of apathy. They were supposed, at my concern, somewhat indignant to the decisions of apathy. The CEO said, "We are debt-free, 5 years operating capital in the bank. Why should we be concerned with growth? We're just doing fine." So he's like, hey, we're good. We're going to try to maintain. The unfortunate part in nature is you're either growing or dying. I think he goes into that here. Remember, the development definition of apathy is a natural human instinct common to us all that consistently encourages us to seek a comfort zone which nothing ever changes. The moment you stop moving forward, another company starts gaining on you, sometimes passing you. The company and its leadership blockbuster. The company and its leadership were clearly in the beginning stages of decline. Effective leadership development is appropriate for every level, which he said in the last page. My first step was to generate a new level of awareness and the available untapped potential. I have learned from experience that behavioral changes have always begins with awareness, and awareness always leads to choice. People will always choose to change when they are aware that the change serves their best interest. So it has to be for the good of what they're doing. Most of the time, people think change is going to hurt them or take them in a negative direction. From this new level of awareness among the leadership team, I started a proactive leadership development process for the top leaders. An appropriate level of leadership development was then implemented at every level of the organization. The company began a new phase of growth, and within 24 months, never looked back. The company discovered a position of no growth is unacceptable, and from this enhanced level of awareness, they counterbalanced the forces of apathy that were threatening to their long-term future. Apathy is like gravity. As a natural human instinct, it consistently at work at every level of the organization. The cumulative impact of apathy on an organization is stagnation and the ultimate decline. So he said, I've observed that this decline is inevitable unless counterbalanced with proactive, consistent leadership development program. Every organization in the world has two common things, a present and a future. I refer to everything between those two positions as a process. Every organization has a process. It may be informal, ineffective, unproductive, highly productive. Regardless of the quality of process, every organization has one. The quality of process of an organization determines the quality of performance of an organization. So the quantity of process of an organization. So how much got done? Have you tracked it? You can basically correlate a line between that and how quality comes out on the other side. You can also draw a line for activity versus productivity. So to wrap this up in the next 2 pages, it says grow or decline. Every organization must choose growth. The only alternative to growth is decline, just like nature. Where there is no position for an organization is planning a future. If you're not going anywhere and you're not planning a future, what happens is people like, we're not going anywhere. There's nothing new. So therefore, I need to go somewhere different that has something new. When organizational leaders choose growth, that growth must come from enhanced overall performance. That enhanced performance can only come from the development of untapped potential. Doing more of the same will only deliver the same results. Insanity is known as doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Effective leadership fosters positive and creative work environments, delivers measurable and sustainable results, and maintains ethical integrity of the workplace. So you have to know you're going somewhere, and then you have to prove you're going somewhere. That was really good. Effective leadership begins with an awareness of how forces of apathy affect an organization. Without awareness of the forces of apathy, people become stuck in ineffectiveness and unproductive. So it really scares you into moving forward because you're like, shit, I'm not going anywhere. While the ineffective leaders focus on the symptoms of their people and problem, it's like, well, I'm not going anywhere, so it must be their fault, right? Instead of looking at yourself. As a result, one of the most common training and development mistakes is where organizations begin basically designing a program to fix their problems. Communication seminar to fix communication. Clerical problems to click a department's lack of focus. Policy seminars to kick attention to detail. Obviously, the problems are never fixed because the organizations are working on the symptoms and never the real problems. Apathy is a natural human instinct, is counterbalanced with certain personal powers that are strategically included in our creative human design. Change and growth occur when you correct the problem, not the symptom. These potential powers are available to everyone, but without some understanding of why these personal powers are important, they're usually ignored. Through the next 4 chapters, you'll learn about choice, vision, attraction, courage. An awareness and understanding of these counterbalancing personal powers can serve you as for future foundation for consistent leadership development model that makes good common sense. You can overcome the negative forces of apathy. So this is chapter 1. Most people are usually only working on the symptoms of the forces of apathy. Apathy is considered a natural human instinct, consistent to us all, encourages us to seek a comfort zone where nothing ever changes. Problems. are never fixed by working on the symptoms. Mankind, basic motivational drive is for basics and then safety and security. If left unchecked, the forces of apathy lead to unproductive and ineffective behaviors. So this is why people like stay in the same place. You know, back in the hunter-gatherer days, they would stay in the same place waiting for the caribou to come back to that place, even though they killed them all. And then they basically get eaten by the bear or, you know, the next tribe because they were unwilling to pick their asses up and move to the next place because they were comfortable. Like, it's safe here. We know this place. We built a fire. We built a little town. We're happy here. Yeah, but you're all going to die. But people would do that and they die without moving. And you can go back and check history in many different cases. You know, Rome did that too, along with some other things. If left unchecked, the forces of apathy lead to unproductive and ineffective behaviors. Apathy is a natural human instinct. It's counterbalanced with certain personal powers that were strategically included in our creative design. So basically, we're able to overcome it. We just have to know how to overcome it. And once we know how to overcome it, we're much more likely to take action. So that's chapter 1, The Tripping Point in Leadership by David Byrd. What else?
That is it. So we were originally doing this show on Facebook. We were having some issues with Facebook Live. We couldn't invite everybody on, and it was being very silly. So we decided to move the show onto YouTube. So if you guys would like to subscribe, you want to go subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Top Producer Show.
We'll put that
And we're also on Facebook too. So we will be uploading this to Facebook as well. So you could go follow that page. So that is what we have for you guys today. And we will see you, is today Friday?
Yes.
We'll see you on Monday. Kitty girl. Oh,